I'ma put you on, nephew.
I don't.
Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?
Miss, I've been hitting up McDonald's for years. Now it's back. We need snack wraps.
What's a snack wrap?
It's the return of something great.
Snack wrap is back.
Hello and welcome back to Chasing Excellence. Hello and how are you, Ben?
Doing great. Thanks, Patrick.
It is good to see you. We are going to go back to the gym. Are you ready?
Let's go.
we haven't done this for a little bit, but I'm excited to get back to the gym, talk about training. We did do a whole series of conversations. Goodness, I'm going to say it was last year, but I feel like it couldn't possibly have been last year, but I think it might have been last year.
With my weird relationship with time.
Yeah, I know,
This
right?
could have been 10 days ago or 10 years ago.
But we're going to talk about training. We're going to talk about fitness. We're going to venture into the ComTrain side of the building over there. But first, I came across an article and I thought it was a good entry point into our conversation today. This is an article he's a writer named Derek Thompson. He's got a Substack. He's a well-known writer, has written books, and he's a journalist. And he wrote an article recently about how we are in America, we are in a fitness boom, which I thought was really interesting. So I'm going to read a little bit from the article and use that as a way to get into this conversation about training versus exercising. And that's really the thing we're going to try to get to here in this conversation. But again, first from Derek's article, he points out there's record high participation rates across all demographics as it relates to exercise. And he writes this: in the last 2 decades, the share of American adults who say they exercise or play sports on any given day has increased by about 20%. Year over year, the American Time Use Survey data can jitter up and down, but what's clear is that in the last 4 years, Americans have been exercising at record high levels. And he writes this: the share of Americans who say they don't regularly work out or play sports, which the Sports and Fitness Industry Association calls the quote unquote inactivity rate, has fallen by more than 1/5 since 2019. But there's a bit of a quality problem hiding in the numbers. And this is what Derek points out. He writes, as sweaty group exercise classes decline, low impact activities like yoga and Pilates are surging in popularity to replace them. No fitness activity saw a larger increase in participation between 2019 and 2024 than Pilates. Yoga and bar classes were close behind among the fastest growing activities. Meanwhile, group cycling, cardio kickboxing, boot camps, and cross-training workouts like CrossFit got walloped by the pandemic, and they haven't bounced back. In general, Americans seem to have traded sweaty group classes for gentler core work. Before we get into defining training versus exercising, any hot takes on just that little bit I read from Derek's article? Anything? I mean, obviously,
hot take is any like 20% up. We're just going to take that, like whether we want to dissect or reframe or anything else. I read the article as well. I really like his position where he's like, no one's talking about this. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really, it's terrific. It's fantastic. We're seeing the highest exercise levels. It's up 20% in the last 4 years, but it's up the highest it's basically ever been, which is awesome. We're in the midst of a exercise boom, as he said. No one is talking about it, but power to the people. It's great. And yes, we can talk about exercise versus training and bar classes versus Pilates versus weightlifting and running, but while the shape of the pie has changed, the slices are being divvied up differently, the pie's gotten bigger.
Yep.
And that's priority number one. Mm-hmm. With a country that is so profoundly sick, we need more people moving.
Yep.
So that's the first takeaway is excitement and positivity.
Actual good news.
That's not going to get anywhere.
And I was right. I just found it. We put out an episode called Get Ridiculously Fit, the Complete Blueprint. We put that out of December 6th of last year. And that was actually a culmination of, I think, 4 or 5 conversations that we had. So that's really the deepest dive we've done on training. So if you folks like this episode, definitely go back and listen to that one because it's going to provide a whole bunch more context to what we're talking about. Let's talk about this distinction, though, between training versus exercising. And actually, you just said a word, moving, that maybe we even want to throw in there. But here's a first draft of definitions between the two, and then kind of correct me and we'll go from there. Exercising is the random movement for movement's sake, and training is purposeful development with measurement and progression. Does that sound about right in terms of the distinction?
That's pretty damn close, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we can think of this on, we love spectrums, we love continuums. Okay.
Continuums.
Right. So the lowest level of this continuum is being sedentary. You're sitting on the couch, you're at the desk, right? Movement is better than being sedentary. I think you're going to have a really hard time finding anyone that's going to argue that in terms of what we're looking for health outcomes.
Yep.
Movement is, getting a walking desk. It's, it's the 10,000 steps. It's gardening. It's dancing. It's just getting your body moving. That is way better than being sedentary. Better than movement is exercise. Exercise is going for a jog. It's going to the gym. It's doing spin. It's yoga. It's Pilates. It's those. That's exercising. That's way better than moving. What's better than exercise is training. Training is physical activity for a desired outcome. It's can you do 20 pull-ups? It's can you back squat 300 pounds? It's can you run a mile in under 8 minutes? It's can you finish a marathon? You have to train to be able to do those things. They don't just come from lots of exercise. You have to train for that desired outcome specifically for that endeavor. There's a level above that, which is well-rounded training. If you can complete a marathon and also back squat 300 pounds and do 20 pull-ups, that is better than doing any one of those things individually by itself. Well-rounded training involves strength, conditioning, and mobility. That's what we're actually looking for when we think about this sort of spectrum of inputs to outputs. The greatest output we're looking for is health, longevity, capacity. We're looking for pain-free, full range of movement. What we're looking for is actually fitness. Fitness is the balanced, multi-dimensional transferable. I stumbled that word for some reason. Transferable, meaning you can take it and do it with other things. Capacity. So not just can you do one thing, but can you do that one thing outside the gym in something that's maybe closely related, maybe not. And what we're really trying to do is just fill in all the gaps so you are ready for any challenge, any adversity, any opportunity that presents itself in real life or athletics.
Cool. I want to get into more of that, get more specific around that well-rounded training around strength, conditioning, mobility. Before we do, I love again, I'm going to keep using the word hot take, even though you don't give hot takes. There was one thing in Derek Thompson's article that I thought was really interesting. And he has a graph showing the change between what people are doing when they're exercising, when they're working out, when they're doing, fill in the blank. And it's really interesting. In 2019, it looked like somewhere shy of 14 million people were doing CrossFit, basically CrossFit-like workouts. And in 2019, there's about, let's call it 10, there's not specific numbers. I'm just looking at the graphs. Somewhere shy of 10 million people doing Pilates and around the same number doing group cycling. So those were the three that were tracked. And then in 2024, group cycling has dropped a little bit, but what's really interesting is that Pilates and CrossFit is basically flipped. So now Pilates looks like just shy of 14 million. Let's call it 12 to 13 million people say that they're doing Pilates, and CrossFit is about 9, 10, somewhere in that range, 9, 10 million people. Does that surprise you? Because that kind of surprised me that there was that sort of trade-off between 2019 and 2024 in terms of what people were doing. I mean, you're in the world. So did that surprise you, or did that kind of track with?
It's surprising. I didn't realize the rise of, I think we've all seen sort of the fall, people that were doing CrossFit in the heyday have found other ways. I don't think they're switching from CrossFit. I don't think this is the story. I don't think they're switching from CrossFit to Pilates.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think that they're going from CrossFit to, they're doing some strength training, and they're going for runs, and they're doing more of like a hybrid model. I think that's a normal progression that a lot of people have found themselves in, is stepping away from more of that crazy high intensity to something that's a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, Derek uses the word gentler, which I think is kind of interesting. I've never done Pilates.
Again, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that. But certainly the masses, and there's growth, right? So, meaning that more people are entering into this. So it's not like here's the same pie, how are we divvying up the pie? The pie has gotten bigger and more people are coming into the Pilates and yoga slice than the other one. So I was surprised at how big the changes have been, but also not when you sort of like zoom out a little bit and go, if we're introducing new people into this, which we are, we've grown 20%, which is really meaningful, 60 million to 80 million. What's the likelihood? Where do we think that they're going to enter into?
Yep.
Right. And it's it's going to be into a gentler environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that part doesn't really surprise me.
Right. And is part of the argument that you're making when we talk about training versus exercising that there's something great that people are doing something, right? Like any movement from sedentary to training, positive. And I think both you and I both agree on that. But as part of the argument you're making, when we make this distinction between moving, exercising, and training, that there's something that we're missing in that exercise phase or that exercise bucket, and we want to move ourselves towards training? Or is what I'm hearing you saying, like, I don't care what people are doing, I'm just happy that they're doing something?
Yes, and both.
Yes,
yeah,
both and
right.
Both and.
Absolutely. Like if we're gonna take, we took 20 people that were not exercising before and now they're exercising.
Yep.
It's hard to spin that in a way that's not net positive. If it means that 4% have dropped out of the training into the move, like I would take it's a net positive. Like that, we're going to take that as wins. If this is a gateway to something, we're also going to take that. Like getting someone off the couch to doing 10,000 steps a day is awesome. Like that's fundamentally life-changing. Now, do we want them just to stay at those 10,000 steps, which is just kind of like baseline movement and not do anything else? No, we want to get them exercising as well. If someone's exercising and they've been exercising for 3 or 4 years, we could get more return out of their investment. Yeah. They're doing the hard things, right? They're buying the shoes, they're buying the gym membership, they're going to the club, they're getting sweaty and showering afterwards, they're carving out 3, 4, 5 hours out of their week to make this thing happen. The thing we want to do is like they could, if they're psychologically ready for it, they could progress. If they're not psychologically ready for it, then this is way better than where we were. As he said in the article, like this, he titled this is we're in the midst of a fitness boom. So you don't want to like push so hard that you actually like push them out of the boat. Yep. It's like just keep them in the boat. Goal number 1 always is get them to come back tomorrow. Like, because it's just so much better for them to be having this level of activity versus not. Yep.
Maybe it might be worth talking briefly about the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum as it relates to this idea of exercise versus training, in the sense that while most people think exercising is the goal, the argument, at least implicit in the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum, and something we've talked about before, is we want to push ourselves toward the fitness end of that continuum, if for no other reason than as a hedge against, let's call it catastrophe or accident or life getting in the way, right? So can you talk about that a little bit as to why it would make sense, at least theoretically, for somebody who is maybe saying, I'm happily exercising. I go to yoga 3 days a week. I do some Pilates. I make sure I walk 10,000 steps a day. Why do I need to do more than that? Why do I need to consider moving myself into this kind of training phase and then into even the step beyond that, which is kind of like, well-rounded training?
Yeah. So Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, created this framework, this continuum, which is so elegant and powerful in its simplicity. It is the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum. If you think of it as sort of that bell-shaped curve, on the far left side, you have sickness. In the middle, you have wellness. On the far right side, you have fitness. As you said, fitness is a hedge against sickness. The farther you are on that continuum to the right, the more it's going to take to really kind of throw your life out of whack. We saw this during COVID. People that had high levels of fitness that got COVID got sick for a few days or a few weeks. People that were already sick that got it got rocked, and a lot of people have died. But they were usually the people that were already experiencing one or more issues. They were diabetic, they were obese, they were other health issues going on. The contention here is that these are all measures of the same thing. And sick, well, and fit can be mapped on the normal biomarkers that you get when you go to the doctor in terms of your resting heart rate, your fasting glucose, your triglycerides, your blood pressure, your body fat percentage. All of these things can be mapped, and take any sort of like blood panel. You can map them. If you are in the norm, you're well. If you are below, you're sick. And if you're above, you're fit. Example, if your resting heart rate is 65, you're well. Like nothing to really talk about. If it is 95 or 100, you have some issues. There's some things going on. Similarly, if it's 40 or below, you're fit. Like your heart is so strong, it only needs to beat once every 2 seconds to do its job. That's a really strong heart. Same thing with body fat. If you're 35% body fat, you're sick. You're going to have other issues going on in your life. If you're 20%, probably not a lot to talk about. If you're 12%, like you're fit. You're going to have, there's a lot that has to happen before you become obese.
Yes.
So it's like, this is a hedge against fitness. The cool part about this is you can map performance metrics on this. If you don't have the physical capacity to complete a mile in 15 minutes, you're going to have other issues in your life. By the way, like a brisk walk is a 20-minute. This means you can't like briskly, like you can't fast walk a mile. There's going to be some major issues. If you do a mile in 10 minutes, not a lot to talk about. If you do a mile in 6 minutes, you're probably going to have some benefits that other people are not going to have in terms of longevity, health span, not just lifespan, but what your life's going to look like when you're 80, because you're going to have the aerobic power to be able to do things that other people wouldn't, aka walk up flights of stairs, carry groceries, travel independently. So what we can do is we can map all of these things on this sick, well, fit continuum. So what that then means is we need a wide breadth of fitness, because it's not any one indicator that dictates fitness. And my contention is fitness is balanced. You just mentioned strength, conditioning, and mobility across 3 different big kind of concentric circles. How big is your strength circle? How big is your conditioning circle, aerobic conditioning? And how big is your mobility? If you have real limitations in any one of those, you're going to have real limitations in your life. You're going to be edging closer towards that sick department. It's balanced across them. It's multidimensional. And as I said earlier, it's transferable. It's not just about what happens in the gym. It's we need to be able to get you out. So I'm not interested in like, can you do a pirouette on your handstand? Yep. Like that's just a gym trick. Can you do double under crossovers? Like that's a gym trick. So what I'm looking for is, can what you perform in those 3 major areas transfer to life? Like that's what the big thing is. Hike mountains, swim, run, lift, jump, throw, anything that would be required on the job site or in life. What we can, if we do that, what we end up being able to do is sort of mapping what makes up each of these circles.
We're brought to you this time around by OneSkin, the skin longevity company that focuses on cellular health to keep your skin looking youthful and resilient for years to come. Try OneSkin with 15% off your first purchase using the code excellence at oneskin.co. You know you need to protect your skin from the sun, but what if you could protect it from things like collagen loss and inflammation and even repair some of the damage you did when you were younger? The good news is that you can, something I learned from our scientist friends at OneSkin. I've been using their whole line of mineral SPFs for face, body, and lips lately, and they don't just protect your skin from UV damage, they work at a cellular level to help repair past sun damage. My skin feels smoother, looks more even, and I've even noticed some age spots and wrinkles beginning to fade. It's advanced sun care that performs like skincare, addressing the cellular aspects of aging to keep your skin looking and acting younger for longer. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company, and for a limited time, you can try them for 15% off using the code excellence at oneskin.co. We're brought to you this time around by our friends at Function Health, the only health platform that gives you access to the kinds of data most people never see and the insights to actually take action. Visit functionhealth.com/excellence or use the code excellence for a $100 credit toward your membership. That's the first 1,000 people who get this credit. I recently got my blood work done through Function, and while it was mostly, of course, reassuring, there were a few little things that popped up that I would not have guessed. So now I'm taking steps to mitigate possible downstream issues that I never would have known about otherwise. Inside Function, you can test over 160 biomarkers from health to hormones to toxins, inflammation, and stress. It's an enhanced view of what's happening in your body. Here's one thing that really caught my attention, actually. Most people think that if they have low iron, they'll just need to take an iron supplement. No big deal. But having low iron might not be the actual issue, and supplementation could actually backfire. The best approach to see a complete picture is to test your levels of iron, ferritin, and copper. That's why top health leaders like Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, and Dr. Jeremy London are all behind Function Health. I use it. I think you should too. Visit functionhealth.com/excellence or just use the code excellence for a $100 credit toward your membership and begin to own your health. We're brought to you this time around by Element, the zero sugar electrolyte drink mix that delivers the perfect balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium that your body craves. Head to drinkelement.com/excellence to receive a free Element sample pack with any order. When we talk about the 5 factors of health, proper hydration is absolutely fundamental, and it's not just about drinking more water. True hydration is about getting the right balance of electrolytes, especially if you're training hard, following a low-carb diet, or practicing intermittent fasting. Their brand new lemonade salt flavor is incredible. It's like capturing the essence of summer in your water bottle. Squeeze the most out of summer with this limited time flavor that's salty, tart, and incredibly refreshing. What I love about Element is their commitment to real nutrition. They give you what your body needs and nothing it doesn't. Whether you're an athlete, a busy parent, or just focused on optimal health, Element helps you maintain that steady energy and mental clarity that we're all chasing. Plus, they offer a no questions asked refund policy. If you don't like it, give it to our salty friends and they'll give you your money back. Get your free Element sample pack with any order at drinkelement.com/excellence.
If you took that strength component, that strength circle, 3 concentric circles, strength, conditioning, and mobility, there's a lot that can go into strength.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is if you really work on 3, there will be blends between them that kind of cover it. Meaning you don't need to work on every single, there's, just to put some words to it, there's relative strength.
Yep.
There's speed strength. There's strength speed. There's muscular endurance. There's absolute strength. There's a lot of things that go into strength. The take home is if you work on 3, those 3 being explosive power, think really quick, upwards of less than a second to a second, maybe 2. If you work on your think about like broad jump, vertical jump, max height box jump, power clean, medicine ball throw. Those are like very explosive, very fast. If you have capacity there and capacity in absolute strength. Absolute strength is the ability to move maximal external loads. So it is things like your 1, 2, or 3, even 4 rep, maybe up towards 5 rep maxes of the major movement patterns through full ranges of motion. This is things like squat, deadlift, and press. Can you squat pattern, hip hinge, and pull pattern, and press? Squat, dead, and bench press.
Yep.
What is your capacity to do those? The transferability of those to other areas is enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one there is muscular endurance. which is not just the ability to do a rep, 2 or 3, but to be able to do them over and over again. The high end of that spectrum is things in the 20 and 30. Sorry, the low end of that spectrum is in the 20 or 30s, and the high end is in the hundreds, potentially even the thousands. So the low end might be something like in training environment when you're doing drop sets or accessory work, when you're doing like 3 sets of 15 to 20 reps. But the higher might be like sets of 30 to 50 to 100, much like even the West Side guys do, the strongest athletes that roam the earth. And they'll do accessory work with 100 band pull-aparts. But it could go up in the hundreds, like 200 push-ups for time.
Yep.
Or go into the thousands of like kayaking. You don't sort of fatigue, you don't stop and slow down in kayaking because you're not explosive, not because you're not strong, and not because you've lost the cardiovascular component, but because your shoulders just start to burn and give out. That's muscular endurance.
Yep.
So inside of that bucket, not only are we talking about the bucket, but we're also talking about this in terms of time domains. Explosive power lasts under a second, maybe a second or 2. Really not much more than that. We have absolute strength, which lasts a couple seconds to 3, maybe up to 10 to 15 seconds. And then we have that muscular endurance, which could be anywhere from that 30 seconds up to several minutes of work. If you have that capacity well-rounded across those, and by the way, the strongest guys in the world probably aren't going to be the best kayakers. So because you have one doesn't mean you have the other.
Yep.
And kayakers might not be the most explosive athletes either. So it is, while they can be closely related, if you have a good explosive power, you probably are also strong, right? That certainly matches up. But it doesn't necessarily mean capacity in the other. Excellent example of this is one of my good friends, Marcus. We do bench press. He will out bench press me on a max bench press. He'll do 275 and I'll do 245. Then we drop to 135 and I'll do 35 reps and he'll do 19.
Yep.
They are different capacities. So that's that strength component. Then we move on to the aerobic conditioning. And in this area, I shouldn't say it's not just aerobic, it's conditioning across anything. But the idea here is it's also made up of 3. It's not just 3. There's a multiple of them. And there's lots of gray in between and crossover. And you're never just in one of these areas. They kind of are like more like seasons than like gears in a car, right? But what we're trying to build here is your VO2 max, which lasts on the really high end of capacity in sort of that 4, 5, 6 minute, on the low end of that capacity in the 12, 13, 14 minute, with sort of peaking. The most, like the best kind of test of this is sort of that 10, 11, 12 minute, 9 to 12 minute range, really high level capacity of VO2 max, maximum ability for muscles to use oxygen. And by the way, that's really important to understand this. If you were to go get this tested, they would most likely do this on a treadmill or a stationary bike. That doesn't mean that those are the best developers of VO2 max. The more muscles you use in the body and the more demand those muscles are put under, the higher potential VO2 max demand. Meaning if you were to introduce some external loads, do thrusters, do pull-ups, do burpees, it's just very hard to test that when you have a mask on with a tube going down. So they choose to do this in the most controlled environment, which is you're not moving anywhere, treadmill or bike. But don't get that confused with the only way to train these things is bike or run. It's actually equally, if not more beneficial, to use more muscles under load, which is these other aspects of training. Remember, we want it to be multidimensional. Moving kind of down the spectrum, which by the way, we're doing this in time and intensity. Explosive power is the shortest time and the most intensity, highest amount of power output, wattage, whatever you might want to call that. Next down is absolute strength. We've extended the time, but lowered the power a little bit. From there, it's muscular endurance. Again, lowered the time, but lowered the power output. Then from there, it's VO2 max, extended the time, lowered the power output. Then the next place from there is lactic threshold, 20, 40 minutes of work, upwards of 60 on the high end, 50 minutes on the low end. kind of that sweet spot being that 20, 30, 40-minute range of lactic threshold. Basically, how much work can you do before lactic starts to spill over? It's your maximal sustainable pace, essentially. Before lactic starts to spill over, there's a lot. It actually can be used as a byproduct. It can be an energy source. It's not this kind of like waste product that people thought it was. But the idea is, where is that threshold? Then if we move down that a little bit further, it's endurance, cardiovascular endurance. And this is something that could last 60 minutes, hours on top of it. And that is just basically like, how long can you go? So we start to kind of like think about those two components together. They start to create this graphical representation of this sort of, on the y-axis, you have output, how much work you're doing. And on the x-axis, you have time. And what you'll see is a slope down and to the right. What we're trying to do, and this is something that Greg Glassman did such a great job of, is what we're trying to do is raise the entirety of that curve up. It's not about just improving one aspect. It's not just get stronger. Because especially the closer you get to your human potential, the less return you have on that effort and investment. The better thing to do is to find out the areas that you have the greatest potential for gains. Meaning, you're a power lifter. You can squat, dead, and bench hundreds and hundreds of pounds, but you can't run a mile under 14 minutes. You trying to increase your squat, dead, and bench by 2, 3, 4, 5% could take years of effort. You trying to you putting in a couple months of work into your cardiovascular conditioning could return a 5, 10, 20, 30% return on that area of the curve. So in this instance, when we're thinking about in terms of health, the play is, what is my weakest link? Bring that up. Because if you're an 8 or a 9 in some categories, the amount of work it takes, the law of diminishing returns, to get a return on that is not as beneficial as putting in the same or even less amount of work into something that you're not quite as good at. Mm-hmm. Now, if we took that curve, what underpins all of that, what kind of sits inside of the work capacity, is mobility. Mm-hmm. Because what we need to be able to do is express all of this through full ranges of motion. It is not just like shake weight. It's not how much power can you produce through this tiny little range of motion. It's not just wall sit, wall squat, stationary. We need to get out into life and express this through full ranges of motion, dynamically, meaning not just passive hold to stretch, but actually do this dynamically through movement and under load. And that works us through 3 components inside of the mobility bucket, which is flexibility and ranges of motion, motor control dynamically through full ranges, like not just but can you get up and down and bring your arms up over your head and back down and while you're moving across the earth, and stability. Now we have full range of motion dynamically under load. If you have that capacity, then what our contention is, you are setting yourselves up for this is well-rounded training. Mm-hmm. This is the pinnacle of that hierarchy of sedentary movement. So getting back to we can pin this on the sick, well, fit continuum. As we can with sleep and nutrition and mindset. But again, the sick is sedentary. In between sick and well is movement. Mm-hmm. Like at least get out of the house, yep. Right? Go for a walk. Well is exercise. Like go to the gym 3 days a week. It's what everyone told us forever. Like 3 days a week of 20 minutes of moderate exercise, like that. Get well, exercise. Go take some classes. Between well and fit is training. Mm-hmm. And the really highest levels of fitness, because again, it's the area under the curve, is well-rounded training. It's not just run a marathon in 2 hours. Mm-hmm. It's not just back squat 800 pounds. The bigger area under the curve is the 400-pound back squatter that can do the 3.5-hour marathon with capacity to achieve, control, under load, full ranges of motion. That's what we're actually looking for.
Okay. So that's I think you use the term well-rounded training, strength, conditioning, and mobility. So I want to bring back one of the conversations we had. I think it was actually the first conversation we had last year when we started the series on, nerding out about training and programming. We did an episode, I think we called it 3.5 hours to the best shape of your life. And so that was where you gave us basically the blueprint of here's what a week of training should consist of in pursuit of this fitness, in pursuit of this complete fitness. And so I bring that up to ask kind of a two-part question. One, which is everything you just laid out, does it still fit within that original framework that we laid out, that 3.5 hour training per week to get to fitness? And then if so, talk to us a little bit about like frequency, because you just gave us, I think, 9 different components of these 3 big buckets, again, of strength, conditioning, and mobility. So like, how do we fit all of that in to 3.5 hours, assuming we do?
Yeah, actually it was 2.5 hours. So it's 30 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days a week.
Okay.
So you can do all of this in 2.5 hours a week. Now, you can't do it without being really intentional.
Yep.
Right? It's again, if you kind of just go default mode and you just go take a class or you just go for a jog, we have to be very intentional. We have to work hard to be able to do this. But you could do this in 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week.
Okay.
And the really simple framework would be 5-3-1. The 5 being 5 days a week.
Yep.
So go and do 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's the 5. The thing you're going to do every day is something that gets you out of breath and puts you through a full range of motion and sometimes with load. That's kind of the big thing, right? Doesn't need to be every day, but every day all of those 5 days, we should be working on getting some level of out of breath, working that lactic endurance, VO2 max, or lactic threshold. 5-3-1. The 3 is 3 days a week of strength training. And all that means is we have our 3 primary movement patterns: squat, hinge, and press. We need 1 day dedicated to one of those. Mm-hmm. And we just need to lift something heavy. So I would love a world where we kind of just get away from barbells in general. I think it would introduce so many more people to what we're doing. But it's the greatest tool that's ever been invented for strength training.
Yep.
So I don't want to get away from it because we're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It is important to train with a barbell and to be able to squat, deadlift, and press with a bar, because it's the working at those upper percentages of absolute strength is really, really important. So 3 days a week of strength. 1 day a week, go long. That's it. That's 1 day a week. We're going to do some zone 2 stuff and extend that into like 30 minutes of kind of like easy stuff. Mm-hmm. Train 5 days a week, 3 days a week, make strength, 1 day, go long. Mm-hmm. Now, there's some little nuancy stuff in here, which you said as well, is like, well, you take those 9. How do we blend those 9 into it? So working through those, in the strength bucket, we had explosive power, absolute strength, and muscular endurance. Explosive power, think of it in terms of like plyometrics. To actually get the benefit of plyometric training, we really actually only need to do it once a week. Now, it could be 2 or 3. I don't think you need to do it more than 3 times, especially depending on what you're doing. But they could be like low amplitude plyometrics, like skipping or like plate hops. You could do those 5 days a week. But for more like the traditional true plyos, like broad jump, high box jump, hurdle hops, bounding, or other types of plyometrics, med ball throws, once a week is sufficient. Mm-hmm. So 1, 2, or 3 days a week for explosive power. So let's call that once a week, and let's put that on Friday. I'm going to bring that the whole week. So we have that first one. The highest power, most explosive, shortest and fastest. We're going to do that first thing in our training sessions on Friday after a good warm-up. Mm-hmm. Okay. The absolute strength, again, remember that is squat, dead, and press. We're going to put those in on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So Monday we will bench press, Wednesday we will deadlift, and Friday we will squat. And we will be working at loads above 70%. If they're sometimes going up as high as 80, 85, 90, cool. If we're doing higher rep ranges in the 4, 5, 6s, 7s at 75%, I'm okay with that as well. Mm-hmm. But I would like to get some higher things because that's where the more absolute strength gains happen. So now we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, strength training. bench, dead, and squat. And we also are combining that squat on Friday. We're putting before that our explosive power rotational med ball throws, we'll call them to start. Okay? Throwing a medicine ball against a cement wall, right? Yep. Or throwing as high as you can, or slamming it in the ground, whatever you want to do. Okay, moving across then from there, the last one in the strength bucket is muscular endurance. Muscular endurance can be trained upwards of 5 times a week. And again, this could be your accessory work, meaning that we're going to do some back off sets. Some, like if we're going to do the heavy bench press on Monday, we follow that up with 3 sets of 15 incline dumbbell press. And or we follow it up with a piece in our conditioning piece where we're going to do upwards of 100 to 150 push-ups broken up with some rowing in between. So now we have our muscular endurance of working really high rep range with the same movement pattern. We can intermix that into every day if we wanted to in terms of the muscular endurance. We want to get at least 3 days of it because we want to need those 3 movement patterns to be hit, but we could do it even more frequently than that. But let's just say we keep it the same, really simple. So following the bench press, we're going to do a whole bunch of one arm dumbbell shoulder to overhead push press. And we're going to do that in a conditioning piece with rowing. Mm-hmm. Okay. On Wednesday, we did deadlifts. We're going to follow that up with 2 things. We're going to follow up with a quick little set of 3 by 15 RDLs, followed by another conditioning piece with some dumbbell snatches or kettlebell swings. And we'll use that in the higher up rep ranges as well. Friday, we're going to back off the weights total because we've already done the explosive power med balls. We've done the squats. We're going to add in just a bunch of air squats into that one to be able to get some air squats in. And we'll do that in a conditioning piece as well. And we'll throw that in with some burpees or some bike or some jump rope, right? Something else to get the heart rate going. So now that leaves us with these other conditioning pieces. We still have the VO2 max, lactic threshold, and endurance. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the endurance. We're going to throw that in on Sunday. Yep. Okay. So that can be our long, slow run. By the way, I'm building out 7 days and people can pick and choose where they want to go with this. So that's our Sunday run day. You're going to run for 30 minutes. If you want to go longer, I said we keep it in 30 minutes. So we'll just do 30. But if you want to run 45 or an hour, we could do that. And slow, zone 2. Yep. Lactic threshold. Let's do that that could be done once a week. That's all we need. If you want to do it twice a week, that also works. It could be 3 times a week, 1 to 3 times a week. Again, we're going to be doing this in a lot of variants. So it's not like we're doing lactic threshold runs every single time. And because of that, we can get out of this kind of world that the runners live in of like, whoa, that's going to so quickly overtrain you. But let's put in our lactic threshold work on Thursday, and we do that with some running, and we do have some bike intervals or running. Just keep it really simple. And then we still have our VO2 max. We can slide that in on Tuesday, but really a VO2 max could make up any one of those things we did on Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. We can keep those kind of more pure, and we can put that in on Tuesday. And we could do that as I said, we could do this not just with load, but we could do this with some lightweight, some kettlebell swings and some burpees and some box jumps. Mm-hmm. And we can work on our VO2 max through that. Or we could just do some Norwegian 4x4. Get on a treadmill, run for 4 minutes, rest for 4 minutes, repeat 4 times.
Okay. Never heard that. Got it. Okay. So
then we every single day when we're doing those movements, we're making sure we're working them through full ranges of motion.
Question. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So we're working these through full ranges of motion, meaning that we are going all the way down in our squats and sending them all the way up, getting as much capacity as we can through the full range of motion of our joints. We're doing some of them, and we're doing this dynamically. We're moving. There's the motor control, and we're loading some of them so we get the stability. We could also work in some really specific flexibility work or dynamic flexibility work into our warm-up as well. All of that stuff can be done in 30 minutes a day. So to break that down, let's take day 1, which was our bench press and the workout with the one-arm dumbbell shoulder overheads. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a little warm-up, 5, 10, 15 minutes. We're going to jump in. We're going to do a 3x5 bench press. We'll do a couple warm-up sets to get there, but we're probably 12, 13, 14, 15 minutes into it. When we're done with the bench press, we're going to grab a dumbbell and we're going to do 10 shoulder to overhead on each side, followed by 10 toes to bar. And we're going to do that for 5 rounds. 30 minutes and we're done. That workout will take you 6 minutes. And that's day 1. And then day 2, we do the same. And we just kind of work it in.
We are brought to you by Monarch Money, a comprehensive financial command center that brings peace of mind to your financial life by giving you full visibility and control over all your accounts in one single place. Use the code EXCELLENCE at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. That's half price for taking control of what truly matters in your financial health. Here's the thing. Most people are guessing when it comes to their finances, and that is a dangerous game to play. You might think you know how much you're saving each month, or you're spending, or what your investment allocation looks like, but without clear data, you're operating on assumptions, not facts. Monarch eliminates the guesswork entirely by connecting all your accounts, checking, saving, investment, 401ks, everything into one clean, powerful dashboard. The difference between knowing and guessing in your financial life is the difference between intentional progress and hoping for the best. Monarch does all the heavy lifting for you. Smart categorization, clear data visuals, and real control over your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It's not just another finance app. It's been named Best Budgeting App of 2025 by the Wall Street Journal and Forbes Best App for Couples. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Visit monarchmoney.com. Use the code EXCELLENCE for 50% off your first year. We're sponsored this week by BetterHelp, the world's largest therapy platform that connects you with licensed professionals to help navigate life's challenges. Visit betterhelp.com/excellence for 10% off your first month. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. Guilty. But how do you know what actually will work for you? That's where talking to a live therapist becomes invaluable. They can give you personalized recommendations and help you cut through all the noise. Therapy isn't just for those who are experiencing major trauma. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills, setting boundaries, and empowering you to be the best version of yourself. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp has served over 5 million people all across the world with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 based on over 1.7 million client reviews. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp provides access to mental health professionals with diverse experience. So talk it out with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/excellence for 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/excellence. Can you talk a little bit about the distinction that you're making, and I know that you've worked hard to make over the last few years, between what is considered CrossFit and what you just laid out? Because it feels like, if to the uninitiated or to somebody just on the outside, it does sound like CrossFit, but I know that I don't want to say you've gone away from that, but I think you're evolving it in a way that's very intentional. So can you maybe just bubble up like what that intention is?
Yeah, so we're not purposely trying to differentiate. I believe that what they've done is phenomenal. They've revolutionized fitness. It's amazing. And they've massively, I've shared 2 frameworks that Grossman's already created. Like he's massively influenced the way I think about training and fitness. I believe that functional movements and high intensity need to be at the cornerstone of any well-rounded training program. CrossFit defines itself. This is CrossFit's definition of CrossFit. Constantly varied, functional movements performed at high intensity. We do that as well, to an extent. Constant variance, we actually like repetition and structure. So the way we do this is we lay out the week. Every single Monday is muscle building Mondays. So we bench press almost every single Monday. And then we do a low intensity. This is the opposite, like a lower intensity conditioning piece that targets similar muscles. So I'll like the framework of the week. Muscle building Mondays, target Tuesdays, a specific aerobic target, VO2 max or lactic threshold. A lot of times done with intervals. Well-rounded Wednesday, a combination of strength and conditioning, probably looks a lot like a CrossFit thing, right? In terms of like mixing cardio with body weight with weightlifting. Threshold Thursdays, specifically bringing the intensity down to work on lactic threshold. We call it Forever Athlete Fridays, where we have plyometrics, not usually seen in the CrossFit programming. People go, no, box jumps. The way the box jumps are done in normal CrossFit workouts are a conditioning thing, not an explosive thing. Strength training and a short Metcon. Then we do sweat test Saturdays, and then we do Sunday run day. So every week is the same.
Yep.
So just to kind of back it up a little bit, constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity. We don't believe in constant variance. We like structure. We believe that the repetitiveness and the build and the progressions we work on the entire year already programmed out through certain progressions. So we're kind of saying we're beginning with the end in mind and going, we want to get there. To get there, we're going to do this across the 52 weeks. So we don't have the constant variance. We have structure. In terms of the functional movements, love them. Majority of our program is that, but we also do things that aren't functional. CrossFit in their level 1 says we've replaced the bicep curl with the pull-up. We do bicep curls. So we actually like isolation movements as well. So we are not just functional. We haven't said, nope, we're gonna ostracize anything that would be decidedly isolation movements, single joint. So we will do those things. We do a lot of them in our accessory work. So constant variance, functional movements, yes, and, right? And then high intensity. Love it. We also do things that we purposely do not do at high intensity. As we just said, like zone 2. Zone 2 is as low as you can work before you're in recovery mode. So zone 1 is recovery. Zone 2 is the slowest speed you can go with not actually working on recovery. You're actually creating some little deficit. So we work that in every single week, go along once a week at a lower intensity. Then we also do lactic threshold work as well, which is lower intensity. So yeah, we've taken the things that they've built, which have been amazing, and then we've kind of put our little takes on this thing as well.
Dig it. Okay, so I want to wrap this conversation up with a question about goals, by which I mean goals for the individual out there listening. A lot of times when people are choosing, whatever they're choosing, whether it's Pilates or yoga or CrossFit or CompTrain, everybody's sort of choosing based on what they say their stated goal is, right? Whatever that might be. And I'm not going to assume I understand what people who are doing Pilates, like what their goal is, whatever it is, assume validity. But one of the things that I think is an interesting distinction here, when you start to say, okay, well-rounded training versus just training, the goal would then be, or the assumption is that there are people out there whose goal it is to be well-rounded in their training. Can you make the case? Well, do you get the sense that that is in fact what people are saying? My goal is to be well-rounded in my training versus I want to be really good at the single domain that I've decided I like. Again, whatever that might be. Is well-rounded fitness a new goal that you're trying to make the case that we should all want and have? Or do you get the sense that that is a goal for people and now here's the prescription for how we get there?
I don't think it's a goal for most people because most people aren't aware that the benefits is raising up the entirety of the curve and how important this is for the sick, well, fit continuum.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that we're still kind of chasing this, like, as long as I get to the gym 3, 4, 5 days a week, that's the best thing I can do. And you can intermix whatever you want into that. I go to bar class. I go to yoga. I go to Pilates, and they're all interchangeable. The contention is that they are all better than not doing them.
Yep.
But they are not interchangeable. As we, like, if you were to go, Patrick, and let's say for the next 3 months, you were to go out and for 20 minutes, you were going to do one of two different things. 4 days a week for 20 minutes a day for the next 3 months, you are going to walk for 20 minutes, or you are going to run at a challenging but not detrimental pace. At the end of 3 months, which of those two tracks will make you fitter?
The latter.
Correct. So there is a hierarchy to this.
Yes.
Right? Same thing. If you're going to take a broomstick and put that broomstick from the ground to your waist 50 times a day, 3 times a week, or you're going to do that with a 135-pound barbell, which is going to get you fitter.
Yep.
Like
the ladder.
we know that, right? Now we also know that based off of capacity, that if you were to try to run a 2-hour marathon, right? Incredible. Like that would be one person in the world's ever done it, right? But let's call it like sub 3-hour marathon, a goal that could be done with a sufficient amount of training. If you were to do that, or you were going to try to be able to do 20 pull-ups, back squat 360 pounds, and be able to run a 6.5-minute mile, based off of the science of the area under the curve and the fitness, because the fitness is the area under the curve. And if we're trying to move from sick, well to fit, then what we need to be able to do is do well-rounded. It's a greater level of capacity than going and trying to chase one singular thing. This is not the normal take.
Yep.
There is no differentiation here. So people are going to go to spin class. They're just going to keep doing spin class. Good. Like, yes, that's better than if it's going to get you there more than doing nothing, then that is the right move. So the take is not to say that they're wrong, because they're not. But just like they're in business, you can work really hard and not get a lot of results. It's the same thing in the fitness world. You can work really, really hard, commit a lot to it, and not reap all of the benefits that you would otherwise if you had just targeted that on the most meaningful and impactful areas of your business and or your health.
Yep. Last thing I want to ask you about, which I think is related to this, in terms of related to this idea of maybe redefining what our goals are, so that our pursuit of those goals moves us more in line with this idea of well-rounded fitness. It's something I actually stole off the CompTrain website. It's this idea or this concept of quote unquote growing your spheres. So I just want to ask you about this, but this is what it said. With a balance across all 3 tenets, so all 3 tenets being strength, conditioning, and mobility, you are better prepared for any adventure, adversity, challenge, or competition. Grow the size of your spheres through complete training and increase your all sport ability. So is that really the goal that we should be having? Is the goal of, really 2-part question, is the right goal is to grow the spheres of strength, conditioning, and mobility? And if so, how do are there any ways to assess where we are currently so that we know if we're making the right progress in the right direction?
I would say for most of us, the answer is yes, that should be our goals, but not for everybody. If you are a Kipchoge and you're trying to break the world record for the marathon,
Right.
I'm not going to try to get you to do a triple bodyweight back squat. Right? You can work on some levels of strength, but it's not about growing all 3 of it. He makes his money by having the greatest amount of endurance.
He's a great
of any
marathoner,
athlete
by the way, if you don't know. Yeah.
that anyone's ever lived, right?
Yep.
Yep. So the idea is, yes, for the people that are in this, to be athletic forever. The idea behind being athletic forever is to find balance across the 3 spheres and then grow all 3 of them concurrently. If you have one that is drastically diminished, we should put a little bit more emphasis into that one. The cool part is if you do a concurrent training program, that one will come up the fastest just by law of diminishing returns. You're not going to get as much out of the other ones. You're going to get a lot more out of that one.
Yep.
So that's the first one is, yes, for most, that should be the goal, because that's the thing that's going to cause the greatest amount of capacity in any opportunity, adventure, challenge that life presents us.
Yep.
Today, tomorrow, and forever. So that is the idea, unless you're paid to do a certain physical activity, and that's okay to have some wheelhouses.
Got it.
The second part of that question was which part?
Do you have any quick maybe ways for us to be able to assess where we are today? Yeah. Again, so that we know, like, okay, this is my goal now. I'm going to do all these things that Ben just said. How do I know if I'm getting better at, how do I know if my strength is increasing, my conditioning is getting better, mobility is improving? Yeah.
It's a good question. And so I think most people intuitively know the answer to this already.
Yep.
Particularly if you've done any sort of, I just think people know the answer. Like, if you're stiff and you don't have good range of motion, but you can back squat 300 pounds and run a 7-minute mile, guess which one's your weakest?
Right.
Right? It's just like, it kind of goes. Similarly, if you're like a yogi marathoner, right, where you have great mobility and you have incredible cardiovascular capacity, but like the thought of getting underneath a 200-pound barbell like scares the hell out of you.
Yep.
Like, guess which one, right? And then, maybe you're really, Olympic lifter and you're really strong and really mobile. But if someone was like, I'm going to do a 5K this weekend, like, would you like to jump in? And you're like, no way. That's not even a possibility.
Yep.
Then guess which one. But it's kind of those things. It's, you could give kind of different performance metrics across the 3 domains for all different sort of levels. But what you kind of find is like, you could say like, in terms of like, pick your favorite lift, deadlift, squat, or bench. Can you lift 100, 200, or 300 pounds of those things? If you're 400 pounds, it's a really big strength. But level 1, 2, 3, 4, just by hundreds of pounds.
Yep.
Level 1 is 100 pounds for any of those. Level 2 is 200 pounds for any of those. And level 3 is 300 pounds. Level 4, you're off the charts. Don't worry about it. Similar to that, it's kind of like, that's the strength one. It's kind of like the mile time, right? Like, are you through by like 2-minute kind of things? Are you in the 10, 11 range? We got some work to do. Are you in that 8, 9 range? Okay, that's probably like level 2 or 3. Or are you in that kind of like 6-ish range? Like, then we're probably, if you're below that, like, don't worry about it. You're doing great if you're in the 5s. And then for flexibility, this is probably one that's a little bit more challenging because the numbers don't match up. I can't just be like, what's your sit and reach? Is it 3 inches or is it -3? But I actually think that a good one is, which become popular, and Kelly Starrett's wrote about it in Built to Move, is the sit to stand test.
Yep. That's a great.
It doesn't involve the stability as much because it's not loaded, but it certainly involves motor control, balance, range of motion, flexibility, which is from a standing position, can you get to a seated position and then return back up? Anytime that you put a hand, knee, or elbow on the ground, you lose a point. Additionally, anytime you lose balance, you lose a point. So level, kind of the top of this would be, can you do that? Standing, sitting, getting back down without touching anything on the ground and without losing your balance in under 3 seconds. No one really talks about that part, but that's kind of that super high level. We've done this with people in the gym, and there's plenty of people that can do it. The middle level is, can you just do it without putting a hand down? And then the lower level is, do you need to kind of put a hand down, a knee down, right? Yep. Like, if you have to put if more than 2 happen, that's kind of a weakness. So then you go, where am I on those? Well, I can lift hundreds and hundreds of pounds. I can do that sit to stand test, no problem, but I have an 11-minute mile. Okay. That's the one to work on.
Yep. I really like what you said, but hey, you want to come do a 5K with me? And like your gut is like, no. I'm running through a list of things that, hey, you want to come, climb the mountain with me? No. You want to come to the yoga class with me? No. Like, whatever it is that like your instinctual kind of self-protective voice says when somebody's like, hey, do this thing with me. The thing that you most quickly say no to is at least circling around one of the 3 tenets that you're like, okay, that's probably where you're weakest. And flip side as well, the thing that you're most quickly say, like, yeah, I'll definitely go do that with you, is probably the strength.
It's probably the easiest. We should ask you that question. It's probably the easiest way to do it. It's like, want to go to a powerlifting competition?
That's right. Yeah.
You're like, no way. Want to run a 5K?
No
if you're like, no way. Want to do a yoga class?
Yep. Yeah. So that's a really nice way to kind of quickly self-assess where you're at. This has been great. Again, go back and check out if you want even more of this kind of programming deep dive. We did that episode, came out last December. It was Get Ridiculously Fit. The complete blueprint is kind of stacking on top of some of the things we talked about there. So do go check that out. And as always, thank you, Ben. Thank you very much for tuning into the show. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening or watching so you do not miss another episode. For more frameworks and daily practices, visit chasingexcellence.email. And don't forget to tap the link in the show notes for today's full listener guide, where we break down the key ideas and provide actionable steps to help you put them into practice. Until next time, keep building health, finding freedom, and living with your heart on fire.
I'ma put you on, nephew.
I don't.
Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?
Miss, I've been hitting up McDonald's for years. Now it's back. We need snack wraps.
What's a snack wrap?
It's the return of something great.
Snack wrap is back.